And we are live with another episode of the Miss Marvel Aftershow. This is episode 3. Episode 3 came out, let's just say 15 to 20 hours ago, and we're here to talk about episode 3. Normally, the aftershows, are the shows brought to you by The Keeg, where we literally talk about the episodes of different shows right after they air. We watch it at midnight when they drop. At 1 a.m., we do an after show. But this one's a little, just a couple hours later than that. But we're here to talk about episode 3 of Miss Marvel. I'm your host, Dimitri Pereira. And today we got special guest Rid, aka Marvel with Rid, here to talk about episode 3 of Miss Marvel. Rid, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing really good. Thank you for having me on here. I'm super stoked to talk about Miss Marvel episode 3. There's so much to cover in just this one episode and the past one. So really stoked to be here and talk about it. This is a show I've been excited for. So I'm glad I really have the opportunity to come on the Keeg show and discuss it with you. Thank you for having me.
You're a big enough Marvel fan to literally have your username on 3 platforms be Marvel with Rid. Right?
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
What got you into Marvel?
It was really random, if I'm gonna be honest. I got into Marvel almost 10 years ago, but I remember specifically I went to my local library and I was browsing like all the DVDs and I saw a Marvel movie in that section, and I'm pretty sure the first movie that I watched was Avengers 2012. So after that movie came out, by the time I made it to DVD, that's when I became a fan. But it was honestly like I just stumbled upon it. I fell in love with it, and
that's Avengers
how I started.
Movie, right?
Yeah, the first Avengers movie. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And so
that's a good start. I've never because I'm like old enough to be like, oh yeah, I remember like I went to see Iron Man the opening day. Like I knew what I was getting into, and like and whatnot, and I've watched each one ever since. But then like I never thought like, oh yeah, there might be some people that just might skip those first couple movies and just like go straight to Avengers, which is actually not too bad of a start.
Yeah, I feel like I got pretty lucky with my start that I didn't have too much ground to cover beforehand.
Yeah.
And I could just like kind of take off from there. And I kind of just remember like I actually never watched the Marvel movies in theaters. I'd wait until the DVDs come out on my library and then watch it from there.
Really?
Yeah, the first Marvel movie I watched was Civil War in theaters, and it was for my friend's birthday. And so, yeah, I just watched the rest of them on like streaming services, like the Guardians. I remember the Guardians movies were on Netflix at one point.
Oh, yeah, they were. Marvel movies used to be on Netflix, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's where.
But you watch them in theaters now, right?
Oh, yeah, I definitely do.
You're up to speed. Like, you've done all your work already in the past 10 years.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think like ever since Black Panther, most of them I've seen in theaters.
Okay. Did you see Black Panther in theaters?
Yes, I did.
Okay, great. Oh, what an experience. So you start off with the movies. Do you read the comics? Did you read the comics? It's not a test. Everybody can do Marvel the way they want to do it. But
no, that's a great question. So I always knew Marvel came from comics, and again, the library, all the Marvel comics were in the teenage section. I never like been into comics, but I remember I read the Thanos origin comic story first, and that one particularly freaked me out. Like it was a little scary because the origin story for Thanos is a little violent, I guess you could say graphic.
Kills his mom, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I read the Thanos origin stories, and then after that, I never really got into the comics. But I think during the pandemic, I had a lot of free time, so I really like fell back into Marvel again and like all of the MCU. I would say like I was never like a fully like consistent full-on fan about the MCU. I think, but then with the pandemic, like I fully got back into it. So that's when I started reading comics. And for me, the way that I read the comics is if there's a character I really love, I'll read the comics for their character, but I'm not like one who stays up to date. So for example, like Miss Marvel, I heard there was a show coming out. It's a South Asian hero. I was like, oh, I'm gonna definitely read the comics on this one so I can get her backstory. So like I kind of pick and choose the comics that I want to read based on who I'm interested in.
I remember when Miss Marvel came out as a comic, and as people do, whenever there's some new character of color, a new girl superhero, people are always negative first. They were negative about Miles. People forget about this. Like Miles Morales, when he came out in the comics, people were super negative about it. Like Miles wasn't always the celebrated kind of character that he is in like Into the Spider-Verse. And like when that movie came out, like people were like loving him. Like people didn't, and people were the same with Kamala, and people were the same with like every new character that isn't essentially a white guy. You know, then there's the general like comments of like why do we need this, blah 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 blah. But Miss Marvel was, as a comic, amazing from the get-go.
Right.
And like, how much of Miss Marvel comics have you read?
I've gotten up to the Civil War arc. So I've read up till Civil War. I think I've read like the recent runs plus the current ones that are coming out with her and Kareem. I've read like those two. Yeah. So I've kind of jumped around on the runs, but I'd say like I know like the origin story, Ground, the Civil War, the Inventor, all of that stuff. I
mean, her run, I can't recommend it enough, like for anyone out there. Are there who are you looking forward to seeing in live action, like before the show even came out? Like were you looking forward to a specific like character?
I think I was just looking forward to like Kamala Khan herself. Like I remember when I first read the comics, seeing just her conversation with her mom, I was like, who came to my house and figured out the conversation with my mom? Because it was pretty much the play-by-play book. Like there's this one line from the comics that also made it into the show, but it was like, it's not like I'm asking you to go to a party and do cocaine. I was like, that's very like similar to conversations with my mom. So I was just really excited to see her because someone I could relate to beyond just like a person. It's like we have like that cultural similarity. So I was really excited to see her.
I feel what's nice about the show and about the comic is that it's weird. It has like a Peter Parker kind of sense to it, but really it's like family, community, like just a mutual love for each other. It's something that's like super important to Miss Marvel and her character, and I'm glad that it is both in not only in the comics, but it's also like in the show. Like, could they have changed it and made her like an angsty teen? Where like that hates her parents and like her parents are just horrible people. Like they could have done the show like that, right? I'm super glad they didn't.
Oh, same. Yeah, I'm glad that they kept like the family dynamics and her character personality the same from the comics, because I think like beyond just her being South Asian, like her character is something a lot of people can relate to, just like fan of superheroes herself. So I'm glad they had like that nerdy part of her personality in there as well.
There's a lot of layers to her character. You know, she's a Pakistani American teenager. She's Muslim. She's from Jersey City. She has her whole family there. You know, she's also like a fangirl. And like, you know, in the comics, she's like drawing pictures and writing fan fiction. And here she's doing like YouTube videos and whatnot, which is cool. But the big change that people originally, you know, was a big deal was her like embiggening ability. Like her abilities were changed. Did you have any like big thoughts about that? They're like energy constructs now, but I don't know.
I was disappointed with the power change because like a lot of people say, like her power change, you don't see a lot of people just like stretch, right? You know, we have a lot of like people that repeat heroes. I guess you could say like 2 Iron Mans, like 2 Captain Americas and 2 Hawkeyes. So her powers are something that was like unique to her specifically. And also there's this idea that the creators of Miss Marvel created her powers to be in a way that was not like pretty girl powers, which a lot of female characters tend to have. So there was also that layer, and also like her powers were something that helped her overcome her own internalized issue, like racism and her own internalized insecurity. Literally in the first comic panel, she can shapeshift and she changes into Captain Marvel and realizes that, you know, like she doesn't have to like Captain Marvel is not who she is. She should be like happy and comfortable in her own skin, and like that's such a big part. And so when you like strip away that character, when you strip away the powers which are so tied to her own evolution as a character, I think it becomes harder to tell the story, which is why I was disappointed in it, because I'm like, how are they going to tell that story with this new type of construct power, I guess.
Right. It's not saying that like changing the powers would like get rid of the lessons that we learned from it, but rather they have to make it up again somewhere else then, right?
Yeah.
Like these lessons that we learned through her thing. The internalized racism is like a big thing with like minority communities in general, and just like, you know, me growing up or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I'll be the first one to say that like I would look on TV and not see people like me. And it's tough when you grow up, because like you do have your heroes. Like my heroes were, you know, Batman and like these cool actors in the movies that I liked. They did not look like me. And when Kamala says like it's not the brown girls from Jersey that saved the world, you can take each bit of that and like kind of change it. You could be like, you know, it's not the you know, brown guy who goes to Hollywood. Like it's not like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
me when I was acting, like growing up and whatnot, it's, you didn't see actors like me, so how could I then be an actor when it comes to that? And there's like little things like that. And do you feel like the show so far is making up for the power change, or have we not hit that part yet, or we're just not going to get as deep as the comics?
I just don't think we're going to get deep as the comics, if I'm being honest. And I think episode 3, which I know we're not there yet, but was kind of a reflection of that based on the power origins.
Yeah.
And the thing was, like, I kind of accepted the power change going into it. I was like, okay, they changed the powers. They want to make it closer to Captain Marvel. Like, the MCU has been known to like change major things about characters. So I feel like I accepted the power change. But I guess I was like apprehensive about it, because I'm like, how are they going to explain the origin?
Yeah.
If she's not an Inhuman?
Yeah.
And the origin explanation is where I'm more disappointed than the actual change in itself, because of what it means, like because of the explanation and how, you know, certain communities, like the Muslim community, feels about it and its impact on that. Yeah. So that's where I'm more disappointed, is like in the origin less than the change now.
Yeah. And like we're not gonna be touching too much on it as far as like the religious impact, because neither one of us is able to really have that discussion. But for anyone, you know, who doesn't know, like the jinn aren't positive things in Islam, and they're, the fact like the origins were changed to kind of include that backstory is not something that has been received positively by like the Muslim community that is watching this show, you know. But for more in-depth conversation for that, we would have to have different people on the show. So, but check out content creators like Watch with Neebs, who we had last week on the show, and I know he was on Twitter and like TikTok talking a lot about like the specifics of that change. That I believe impacted him, you know?
Yeah. No.
There is a power change. There's an origin change. There's a lot of that stuff. But those first 2 episodes were pretty close to the comics, right?
Yes.
And like, how'd you feel about like the first 2 episodes?
I actually, yeah, I love the first one. I think the second one took a while for me to sit with, just because I was getting used to the power change. Mm-hmm. But then like after a couple of rewatches of the second one, I was like, I love it. You know, there were a lot of important conversations that were happening in the first one and the second one. And I was like, I loved most and almost every single part of both of them, actually. And then the reception to the 2 episodes is something, if you want to talk about. And I was more disappointed in that. And like that made me kind of leave a bad taste in my mouth more than like the actual episodes. But you're right. They were very close to the comics. I loved Kamala's Like I just love the family dynamic. I love Iman Vellani as Kamala herself.
Yeah.
I love the animations. Like there were so many like South Asian like cultural elements. I was watching it and I was like, I know this from my house. This is something I've experienced. And like that was just awesome to see on screen.
Yeah. It was funny in those first 2 episodes, just kind of seeing the little things, because like, even though like I am not Muslim and my family is not Muslim, seeing the different kind of people at the mosque in that second episode, like Illuminantes are everywhere. It does not matter your religion. It's a cultural thing, especially. Though I do think that like maybe white people have some sort of version of that. You know, it's the gossipy types. But like Illuminantes really stood out to me because just on a South Asian level.
Oh yeah.
You know, just on a brown community level, seeing that, I'm like, oh, I have never seen that before in my life in any media of like TV show or movie ever.
No, sorry, it was great. Like Illuminati's, it was just really funny seeing that, like watching Doctor Strange Multiverse Madness and like actually seeing like the Illuminati and then seeing the Illuminati's. Anyways, I just thought that was funny. But yeah, like every Desi person has some sort of experience with the Illuminati's. And so that was just great. And like also the soundtrack is just absolutely amazing, and like seeing South Asian artists like featured when they played Jalebi Boy. I remember how big of a hit Jalebi Boy like was on TikTok, and to see that in a Marvel show was just surreal. And like I think there's just a lot of like that, the scene especially of like Kamala and Muniba going and doing errands for Amir's wedding in the first episode, like that scene spoke to me on such a level because it reminded me of like me doing errands with my own mom for like getting ready for like a Diwali party or something. And I was like, it's weird that's in a Marvel show in a franchise I love, but I feel like I'm watching my own life play out in front of my eyes.
Yeah. And this is something that affects me less than I think that it affects like girls in like our respective communities. But like the whole like when Kamala is trying on the dress, and essentially it's body shaming, right? They mention how she's too short. That being said, I feel like the body shaming thing is worse in real life. Like, again, it's not. It's. I can only speak a little bit of it because it affects men differently. It's still there, but it affects men differently. But like for girls, it's a little bit different. But it is something very specific to that, right? To that experience.
Yes. Yeah.
Especially when the auntie, that other auntie comes in, and it's like, oh, just makes it worse. It's just you know, but yeah, there's a lot of like really cool things in this show that we see, and like we see more as time goes on. We get kind of a basic look at it in episode 1, and then it kind of goes. And I know that there are people out there that watch the show that don't get a full understanding of it, which is understandable. Not everybody has, you know, each experience. Again, I'm not getting a full 100% understanding. I got to talk to Neebs to like figure certain things out.
Yeah.
And like it's like, "Oh, I didn't know that," you know? And like Neebs will say, "Oh yeah, this is this and this means that." And I'm like, "Oh, I didn't know." But there's like some really cool things, but some of the people out there are like, what did they say? I saw some dumb article being like, is the Illuminantes a reference to the Illuminati from Doctor Strange Multiverse Madness? It's like, no, it's not. It's a reference to the word Illuminati. That's it. That's the only connection.
Exactly. It's like I don't expect people to understand every single thing. I think it's just like with like some of the takes that were coming out of the first 2 episodes, I feel like people were overstepping boundaries of not understanding like nuances that only a certain group of people would understand. So like one of them is everyone who suddenly started calling Muniba auntie, they were like, oh, she's like a bad parent.
Abusive.
She's abusive. Yeah. And I was like, are you serious? Like that's not true. I mean, first of all, as far as a South Asian mom goes, like, she's so supportive. She's awesome.
Yeah, the thing my mom pointed out, my mom was like, the only thing that doesn't make sense is why she's Kamala's friends with Bruno, and like the family's like cool with it. So like she allows that. So
exactly. Yeah. So
up.
I was like, how can you say that? Like, it's not like, maybe you don't agree with her style of parenting, and that's something you can, say that I don't agree she did this, but going far out of your way to say she's a bad parent and abusive when you don't understand the nuances of immigrant families, especially immigrant moms, and like the amount of things they have to go through, and that's why they parent the way they are.
Right.
It's just wild to me. Like,
there's a cultural difference to the parenting, right?
Of course.
And that's not even, we could use that to say and excuse abuse, but there's no abuse going on here.
No.
Like, can there be? Has there been in real life? Yes, whatever. Like, people, but there's abuse in white families, right? Like, there's abuse in. So I feel like somebody pointed out that, like, what's the difference between Muniba and like Lizzie McGuire's mom? Lizzie McGuire's mom is like, she'll be like, I mean, not that she's bad, but like Lizzie McGuire's mom is just like, no, Lizzie, you can't. Do you know who I'm talking about? Lizzie McGuire?
I think I've seen like 2 or 3 episodes.
Okay.
I think I've seen 2 or 3 episodes. I'm not completely familiar with it.
I feel like I'm dating myself by being like, yes, the pinnacle of like all these shows is Lizzie McGuire. But like Lizzie McGuire's mom would be like, no, you didn't, like something X, Y, and Z happened. You're not going to the party tonight. And then like Hillary Duff will be like, oh my God. And then there's, whatever. Hillary Duff, like Lizzie McGuire will throw a fit before Kamala throws a fit. Like Kamala has not thrown a fit, like whatsoever. But like, there's no difference between Muniba and like Lizzie McGuire's mom. Like, she said she couldn't go. She said like, I don't know. There was nothing wrong with what she's doing. I think people just want to like see that and just demonize her.
Yeah,
and she's doing things, but
exactly. Yeah, like there's been like this trend lately, and it's unfortunate to say it's a trend of people like suddenly demonizing a lot of like women of color featured in movies like Turning Red or Abuela from Encanto. And it's like, if you don't understand the nuances, don't speak on it. I mean, obviously I can't control what other people have to say. I guess it's just frustrating because like for me, I see an experience I can relate to. My mom can see an experience that she relates to on watching Miss Marvel, and for people to just say something without a thought is just disheartening.
Yeah, I have a theory about what was happening there. Turning Red, Encanto, Everything Everywhere All at Once dealt with people of like more collectivist cultures that hinge a lot on family, respect, like getting along, even if it means pushing away things that like mean something to you. It's like, for the greater good, we're gonna do X, Y, and Z. And when those movies came out, creators of those communities or of similar communities kept being, brought up the fact that like, this is very similar to how things are. I can't believe that this matriarch accepted that she was wrong, because let's face it, sometimes that doesn't happen. And like, we would talk about that. And then the other people outside those communities were like, yeah. They're horrible people. And like, blah, blah, blah. And then because we were talking about it, they kind of came on it, and then they jumped the gun on Muniba, and they're like, yeah, we're like, we're like you. And it's like, no, you don't understand. That's not the same.
It's not like, and I like, just because, I mean, it's hard because, technically, like from my experience, if I was in Kamala's shoes, I would probably do the same exact thing or feel the same exact way, and I have felt the same exact way, but I think you get to kind of a point where, like, as a child of like immigrant parents, you understand why they are the way they are, even though it may not have been something you necessarily agree with. I think there's like a level of understanding that we all come to. And like for other people to kind of just take our words of us being like, yeah, like this is a common thing, like, it's generational trauma, like what she does may not be a good thing. They just hear the not a good thing and then run with it, and they're like, yeah, she's bad, and it's
the
like
worst. Like,
no, she's not.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not what we said.
Yeah. There's a choice that Kamala does in episode 3 that I don't agree with, and that I feel like I would have done something different. We'll get to that. But if episode 3, because episode 2 ends off in a kind of like a very shocking cliffhanger where we meet, what's her name? Kamran's mom.
Najma, right?
Najma, yeah.
Yeah.
And we meet her at the end of episode 2, and episode 3 starts off with the flashback, right?
Yeah.
To the partition, and then we see other members of the clandestine, which we don't know is the clandestine until later. And Najma and Aisha, right?
Mm-hmm.
Being Kamala's
great-grandmother
is there.
Yeah.
And they're looking for the bracelet. Did you notice whose arm is that bracelet on? The bangle.
Yeah, it was like a blue arm, and a lot of people were theorizing that it's probably a Kree arm.
I think it's a Kree arm.
So
that's what I think. Do you think that?
I mean, I saw like it didn't occur to me, but I saw like the videos on it, and I don't really see it being anything more than a Kree arm. It's the same color. There were some jokes going around about it being Nebula's arm, but that's just a different thing. Yeah. But yeah, no, I agree. I think it's a Kree arm.
Yeah. Have you watched Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
I've watched 2.5 seasons.
Oh, so the first season with the dead Kree?
Yeah.
Okay. So like that's what it reminded me of, is that dead Kree in that first season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, they're experimenting on it in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. In this, it's like, it's just a dead Kree under the rubble wearing those. They take it off and whatever. And they're trying to find the second one, right? Who knows what a second one does?
I think like people kind of like, when I think back to the episode, that's like a detail that I think I and like people skirt over, is the fact that there's a second one and we've only seen the first one. So
yeah,
we know also going to that scene that they saw the 10 Rings logo. So what if the second one?
Where is the 10 Rings logo? I heard that was a thing, but where?
It's actually in the seat itself. So when they like pan, I think the camera kind of pans up and you're seeing the clandestine members. Around them is literally the 10 Rings logo. So that's where people are referencing it. I don't know if I can if you can probably see the picture through here, but I have a picture of the scene.
I can look it up, but 10
I think you can probably search up something like 10 Rings Miss Marvel or something.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, I didn't notice that until I saw it pointed out.
Oh. And it's interesting because it's the 10 Rings logo that they use in Iron Man, right? Specifically. Yeah. And then later, is that the same logo that is in the back? Yeah, it's in the back of Wenwu. I didn't realize that. That. That's a cool connection.
Yeah, it is a cool connection. Now I'm wondering, like, now that we're having this discussion, what if the second one are the 10 Rings? I feel like
the 10 Rings is the second. Like, by the way, are we calling it a bracelet or a bangle? Like, what are?
I think bracelet is like the English name, but like bangle is what I say because like that's like the South Asian term.
Yeah. But like, I mean, they're kind of structurally different though, right?
Kind of,
but like all the 10 Rings together makes one, and then like Kamala's one is the other one.
Yeah, because I saw like screen caps on Twitter, and at one point in Shang-Chi, the 10 Rings also turn a very similar shade of purple to Kamala's bangle. So, and someone pointed out on like how Wenwu found the 10 Rings in a crater. So, and like Wenwu, China and Pakistan are very close. So I wouldn't be surprised if the 10 Rings are actually end up being connected and is the second one, because like on a geographical scale, the locations are very close too.
Yeah. Like that's a fraction of a like if it was a meteorite that was coming, it'd just be a fraction of a degree off, and it would still be, in Asia.
Yeah.
Also, at the end of Shang-Chi, we learned that it's extraterrestrial in origin.
Yes.
Right? And we don't know what. So even if this isn't the actual other bracelet, it still could be from the same source.
Oh, yeah.
It could be Kree.
Yes.
And then what are they building towards if everything's leading us towards Kree stuff?
Well, I feel like there's a reason then Carol Danvers was also in the Shang-Chi post-credit scene, because I definitely can see, like, I don't know what they're building towards, but I feel like the signs are there for the connection, because like they specifically had Carol come in. And then I also saw something like a theory on Twitter, and it was like Carol had to leave for an emergency. What if that emergency is Kamala?
It's possible, yeah.
So I definitely think there's some connection. I think it's really interesting what they're trying to build towards. Like when I think of Cosmic MCU has so many different possibilities, and them bringing back the Kree and building towards I don't know. Is it to introduce a new set of species?
It's weird,
groups?
right? Because if we get the Kree in this bracelet thing, but we also get the clandestine, which it is not. So in the comics, Kamala is an Inhuman, and they bring in a lot of Inhuman stuff. And then with this stuff, before they said the word Jinn, before they said that, I thought they were gonna be like an ancient Inhuman kind of race.
Yeah,
and
me too.
tie in with Inhumans.
Yeah.
But then they chose not to, which makes me also think that Marvel, if Kamala's not an Inhuman, which it doesn't seem like it is, I don't think Marvel's ever going to bring the Inhumans back.
But it's weird because they had Black Bolt in Multiverse of Madness, and didn't they introduce him as like King of the Inhumans? Yeah, so it's weird.
But like, it's a different world, and he's dead now, so it's
true.
It's like,
yeah.
Just, right?
No. Yeah.
But like, it's weird. Like, if Kamala's not an Inhuman, like, why would you ever bring it back? Because Kamala is, let's be honest, nowadays, not back in the 70s or 80s, but like nowadays, the most famous Inhuman is Kamala. Because nobody cares about Black Bolt and Medusa and Gorgon and Triton.
No.
It's Kamala. Kamala's the most famous Inhuman. And the fact that she's not an Inhuman in the show makes me wonder if they're ever going to bring the Inhumans then.
Yeah.
What's the point?
Right. I have seen like some people saying it's a misdirect. Like Najma is lying to her about the origin so she can get the bracelet or something. And then in the end, she'll be like, actually, we are Inhumans or something. Like there's so much, because the thing is, even though she introduced them as like the clandestines, we don't know like the origin of the clandestines. And like some people are, I think in the comics, weren't they like a Jinn Kree hybrid or something?
I don't know. Was the clandestines in the comics?
Yeah, I think the clandestines are a family in the comics. And I was like watching a video on it, and I think they're like a Jinn human or Jinn Kree hybrid.
By the way, I don't know if you meant to say Jinn human, but Jinn it sounds like Inhuman.
Oh, yeah.
Did you mean to say that?
No.
Did we unlock everything? The Inhuman are Jinn human? I don't know. I don't know who. Let's see.
I feel like things are kind of just up in the air until we get the backstory of the clandestines themselves.
Yeah, that's true. Like, but that's the thing with like Marvel stuff. It's like 10 years from now they can come back and say, "Oh, it's the same thing," and like they were actually Inhuman the whole time, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they're weird looking. I don't know what they're like, the clandestine in the comics. I don't know what's going on. But I don't know them. But they are Jinn related. Weird. But they meet up with X-Men stuff?
I have no idea. Like,
I don't know.
I like refresh myself on Inhumans, but I've never heard of clandestine. So I guess that's something I gotta get through as well if I want to try and understand them.
I'm gonna have to look into them. Definitely.
Yeah. But they're like a Jinn, like human hybrid.
Yeah.
And I don't know. But then the blue arm is a Kree arm. So then it's like, is it a Kree Jinn hybrid?
Maybe the bracelets aren't theirs. the bracelets are only used to get them home, right?
Yeah.
So maybe they just know that the Kree have the technology, the bracelet,
Right.
to get them home, but
Yeah.
maybe they have nothing to do with the Kree.
True.
You know,
But
like we don't know.
I feel like if the bracelet was to unlock a power within them, they would have to have a connection with the bracelet to do that, right? Because the way like it was kind of confirmed that like the power is coming from within Kamala.
Yeah.
It's not like giving her powers. So I feel like the bracelet would have to have a connection with them in order to unlock that power, or like the Noor or something.
Right, you mean they have to put it on?
Yeah, but like the bracelet like unlocks that. So I feel like there'd have to be some connection between the origin of the bracelet and the origin of them for it to unlock.
Right. I don't know. Did we see any of these characters use powers? Any of the clandestine?
We only saw Aisha and Kamala do it. And the other one,
We
like
saw
with the
Aisha do it?
bracelet. Yeah, she had the bracelet at the partition.
And she used a power?
Yeah, she used a little bit.
It glowed, and then she was like, "Did you see that?"
Yeah.
Right.
So we saw her do that. But I think like in general, I don't think like the clandestines have powers, because in the entire fight scene that was at the end of episode 3, it was all physical.
And
so
with those weapons that appear out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Those like, yeah. It was really just the way, and they're like, I think durable, right? They're like strong, kind of.
Yeah.
And durable characters. Yeah. So the question is, have they not put on the bracelet? Like, if they put on the bracelet, would they have then power? Like, their powers get unlocked?
Probably, because like the way Najma explained it was that the bracelet unlocks, like they're from another dimension, the Noor dimension.
Right.
And the Noor inside them is what keeps them from aging. And that Noor power is unlocked when they put the bracelet on. And the other characters, the other clandestine, except for Aisha and Kamala, haven't been able to unlock the powers because they've never had access to the bracelet. And like, I think that's why they want the bracelet, so they can like unlock their own thing and eventually do interdimensional travel.
Right. That's weird. So if that unlocks what's it, and Kamala, she has the Noor because of through her grandmother or great grandmother.
Yeah.
But then that, like, we'd have to have an explanation on why her rest of her family doesn't have it, or maybe Muniba does.
Okay, so I think they do, because towards the end, like the very end, her Nani tells her to come to Karachi because her Nani also saw the train.
Yeah.
So I think they all do have it, but
just her though. Like, did Muniba have that?
I think so. Because like in episode 1 and 2, a lot of people were talking about how Muniba said, "I knows what happens when people get obsessed with their fantasies. My own mother had it. I had it. I come from a long line of daydreamers." So a lot of people were like,
say
"Okay,
I had it." Muniba didn't.
Oh wait,
she said her mother did.
Yeah, and like
she
comes from a long line of daydreamers. But she also called the bracelet junk, which I found very odd, because I feel like a mom wouldn't just call her mom jewelry is junk unless she has like some sort of a negative experience. So that's why I'm theorizing that Muniba also played around with it. I think it's just that, I guess like the difference is that Muniba and Sana were never like superhero fans or never grew up on that. So they were like,
they put it on, they had a vision and they took it off.
Yeah. And they were like, this is too much. But like with Kamala, it's like, she's a fan of superheroes. So for her to have superpowers, it's like another layer. Yeah.
She wouldn't have had like anything crazy if she didn't train, right?
Nope. Like, but the fact that she's already like a fan of superheroes, to become that superhero, like adds another level of like passion for her to like pursue the powers more than probably her grandma and mom did.
Yeah. Do you think Aisha's alive? Because I think she's alive.
Yeah, probably.
She has to be alive, right?
Yeah.
That's gonna be weird. I don't know how they're gonna do all this.
It's weird though, because if the Noor stops aging in them, is it only like for like the original?
I think for the original.
The original, right? Because like her mom and grandma.
17, it's not like he's a baby.
Yeah, and Kamala, like her mom and her grandma have aged too. So I guess like if you inherit the Noor, it's probably just the part where it's like you just have a gene for the power. Like that's it.
Right. That has to be unlocked, right? Because it's
Yeah.
not like Kamala is extra durable. She's
No.
not like the clandestine are, but like she's not extra durable, so she didn't inherit that.
No.
You probably have like so then, but also the question is, what then does Kamran have? Like does he have any powers that we know of so far?
I think so far. Well, no, I don't think we know of him having any powers. I just think we know of him like being in clandestine. But that's what I think some people were saying too. They were like, what if, because like in the comics, like they're doing a completely different direction and take on his character from the comics. But someone was saying like, what if Kamran puts on the bracelet or something and like becomes his own original superhero, kind of like they did with Layla in Moon Knight?
Oh.
What if they take like that direction on his character? And I'm like, I can see that happening. So I guess if he does put the bracelet on, we'll find out. And
he has like
if
what,
he
crystal powers or something.
I don't know what
he has powers in the comics. He turns into this like crystal looking kind of shimmery thing. All I wrote in Google was Kamran. I didn't write anything else. I should have written Kamran Marvel. Okay.
Oh, isn't it in the comics like he has like some sort of exploding powers or something, I think.
Oh yeah, he does. He uses the stored energy within his body. He can channel it and discharge it as a shock or transfer the energy into something. That's what he has in the comics. And so he kind of looks glowy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, his body emits a glow, like a glowing energy. Interesting. Yep. Is he bad?
Yeah, he's like bad in the show or in the comics? In the comics, Kamran is bad because like he actually befriends Kamala and then tries to get her to join these Inhumans that are trying to kill people because like Inhumans are better and stronger than the normal people. Yeah. And so he like tries to like, he literally kidnaps her and like tries to get her to join and like hurts her and stuff. So yeah, he's not good in the comics.
You mentioned Kareem. Kareem is Red Dagger, right?
Yeah, Kareem is Red Dagger.
Yeah. I want to see Red Dagger because like, but she's gonna go like what? She's gonna go to Karachi next episode. We're assuming.
Yeah, Karachi, right? And I think it's been confirmed. Like they already Kareem was confirmed to appear, so we know he's coming. I think the different thing they're doing with Red Dagger though is instead of just one person, it's gonna be a group of people because, one of the Bollywood actors, Farhan Akhtar, he's coming into the show and he's supposed to be playing Red Dagger.
Oh, so maybe there's like just multiple.
Yeah, so there's multiple, which I'm really interested to see how that's gonna work out. So yeah.
I think with the clandestine, I think that they're all gonna put on the bracelet.
Yeah.
I think each one they're gonna take turns and they're gonna take the bracelet and take it off and then pass it around and get their powers.
Yeah, I feel like I can see that happening for sure because like that's how they would sort of build up like the villain, and then I guess like Kamala and Kamran would have to take them down. I can kind of see them taking that direction.
Maybe Red Dagger.
Yeah, and Red Dagger joining them. That's actually a pretty good like way for them to kind of end off the story. It's like overpowering their villains and then having, well, not overpowering, but like unlocking the powers inside the clandestine. I'm just really curious how they're gonna end the show. Like, are they gonna like, is she gonna defeat the clandestine and then strip them of their powers? And then like send them off to the dimension, or that's what I'm really curious about is how are they gonna solve that?
I mean, I know we were talking earlier where I was like, I don't know if the Inhumans will ever show up if you're not gonna make Kamala an Inhuman. But if they do make Kamala an Inhuman, if they at the end they're just like, oh yeah, these guys, the clandestine, they're just Inhumans. They just think they're special, but you know, whatever. I can imagine like, can you imagine like Black Bolt and Medusa like introducing themselves to Kamala at the end?
I can see that. I mean, we did get a Black Bolt cameo, so I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. I feel like more Black Bolt than any of the other Inhumans, and they're like, actually, you're like this, and now we got to take you. And then, wait, I can't remember exactly, but something in I feel like I read a tweet or something recently
Uh-huh.
where they were like, Miss in the new Captain Marvel movie, they're gonna explore Kamala's origins more. So
Oh,
I feel
okay.
like if that's true, I can definitely see the end of the Miss Marvel show kind of hinting towards that. And like, they could have
The Kree
if
stuff?
they go like the Inhuman route, maybe have like one of the Inhumans come in, or like the Kree stuff is like they try to figure out where exactly she's from or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, that is something to look forward to. That after these 6 episodes, that at least we're gonna get her Carol. We're gonna get Carol. We're gonna get Monica and Kamala together in a movie.
Yeah.
I'm excited for that trio because that
Oh,
sounds like a super fun trio.
um, I wasn't the biggest fan of the first Captain Marvel movie,
No.
so
Neither am I. But I think that like a character like Captain Marvel works best when you pair her with somebody you can bounce off of.
yeah,
And
I
so,
think
yeah.
I think as a trio, I'm like super excited to see them.
Yeah.
I really did enjoy Monica Rambeau in like WandaVision, so I'm excited to see where they take her character and just like what the three of them do together, like in their dynamic together. I think it's also So I'm just excited to see the three of them and their dynamic and how their stories get told.
Yeah. With this episode, we get Amir's wedding, which like how'd you? When was the last time you went to a wedding, like in real life?
Oh my god, this is really sad. But the last time I went to a wedding was probably when I was 4 years old.
Yeah.
It was my mom's cousin's wedding.
Yeah.
But so yeah, that was the last time I went to like an Indian wedding. I haven't been to one since.
Yeah.
So yeah.
When I was younger, I feel like there's different like at different age gaps, like you go to more weddings and then it stops for a while and then you go to like
Yeah.
But like when I was a kid, I went to my aunt's weddings in Sri Lanka, so I got to like experience that. And then no more Sri Lankan weddings up until like my friend Dylan got married last year, and he had a pretty Sri Lankan wedding, and it was here, which I was surprised for because like I feel like I've seen pictures of other Sri Lankan weddings that are here in America, and it's not too Sri Lankan-y. But like Dylan's was like a good mix, and that was like super cool to go to. But I feel like I feel like you got maybe like 5 more years, and like then everybody's gonna start getting married.
Oh yeah, no, for sure.
And like even if it's not you're just gonna be going to a bunch of different.
Oh yeah,
no.
I will say though, like the wedding very much reminded me of a lot like the large Indian functions that like my parents and I go to, like the large Diwali party. So that was pretty cool, like with the whole dance sequence and everything.
Yeah.
And like the soundtrack they chose for the wedding, which is absolutely beautiful because there were like bangers from like my mom's times and then songs that I've grown up on. And I was like, I can't believe this is actually in a Marvel movie. Like they put an Era Ramon song in there, and I was like, that's crazy.
Are you big in like? Do you dance? Like,
do I what?
Do you dance?
I don't dance actually, but I love just like dancing at like the functions and stuff, like for fun. So that was just really great to see like all of them just like come onto the floor and dancing, because I was like, this is exactly what happens at an Indian function.
Yeah, it's funny because I think it was on a TikTok. I saw a video of like. I think it was like at an Indian wedding, and it was a bunch of Indian guys and then one white guy. Did you see that one?
I know what you're talking about.
Like, they went all out, and people were like, oh, that's crazy. And then I was like, this seems like it's from Miss Marvel, because is that guy Bruno? Like I was watching the TikTok, I was like, could it be? And it's like, no, it's like an actual thing.
Yeah.
But then in this, he starts dancing too, and I was like, oh, good for him.
No, it's so funny that you say that, because they actually like dropped the wedding clip of Kamala and Bruno's dance like the day before the episode came out.
Oh, okay. I didn't know.
On Twitter. So I like watched it there, and I was like, seeing Bruno dance at this wedding is very much reminding me of all the recent TikToks I've seen on my For You page with white guys dancing at Indian weddings, because like that's what I've been seeing recently. So it's just really funny you brought that up, because I know exactly what you're talking about.
As much as I want to make fun of Bruno, he's been a good ally up to this point and through this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, he's not only an ally to Kamala as a superhero, but I mean like an ally just to the community in general.
Oh yeah.
Learning words and eating food and like dancing at the wedding and being a part of that. I feel like that's important that he was allowed to be a part of like Amir's wedding because he's not Amir's friend.
No.
He's Kamal's friend, but like
Yeah.
he has a close relationship with the family that I think is important, and you see that in the scene where Yusuf goes to the store and Bruno's studying the jinn stuff. And like Yusuf is like, let me help you, right?
Right. Yeah.
I think it's
I
a
think
cute relationship.
yeah, I honestly I saw a TikTok and it was about like this girl and she was like, oh, me waiting for like Muslim rep in MCU and then being shocked at the fact that like Kamala's parents allow her to be friends with like a white guy and like they're so close to him.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's true. But I think when you think about like how Kamala and Bruno became friends in the comics,
Yeah.
how close he is with her family just makes the whole thing a lot more wonderful. Like the fact that it was Kamala's parents who had her become friends with Bruno in the first place. I think like that adds a layer of just like a lot of heartwarming moments that he shares with the parents. And I hope that the way that they became friends in the comics is the same way in the MCU because doing that would explain like why he's so close with just her whole family in the first place.
I think he's earned his place in the community.
Oh yeah.
You know? Not everybody does. Because some people come at it from the wrong angle, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like he's genuinely and sincerely as a character part of that, right? He's not acting like he is that though, which is sometimes annoying. And it's like, whoa, like slow your roll a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like it's also like no, he knows when to talk and when not to talk.
Yeah,
he knows when to like add things and do his part. And like he went to the Eid festival, right?
Yeah.
And like he dressed up and he did that. Great. I think a perfect example of like someone who's like part of the community and earns his place. Even though I want to make fun of him. I want to
No, I get that. One of my mutuals, like a lot of people don't like Bruno in the comics, which I understand why. Like, I haven't gotten to the part where Kamala's dad gets cancer and like what happens then. But I like my mutuals talk about like what Bruno does then and then the whole bombing and like when he got bombed and like he kind of blamed it on Kamala. So a lot of people don't like him in the comics for that. So people, one of my mutuals is like sad. She's like, I can't make fun of Bruno in the MCU because he's actually likable and he's actually a good person.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's true. And it's really, I think it's really nice to see, which I've actually seen a couple people comment on this, is like the change that some of the characters from the comics, like Amir and Bruno, they made them better than they are in the comics. And that's really refreshing for some people to see.
I do think Amir is better in the show because you just see that relationship with him and Kamala, and like it's a stronger, more personal relationship.
Yes,
which is like one that like I'm only 4 years older than my sister, but like we have a close relationship. Amir is a lot older, right, than Kamala.
Yeah,
Amir's what 10 years older at least.
Probably, yeah.
And so it's like but they still have like that thing that you see in that one scene in episode 1 that they're close enough to talk like that. But yeah, Amir I think is better. Bruno I think is better in this. I can't put a finger on Nakia, like whether she's better in the comics or the show. I like both.
Yeah,
I'm still figuring her out.
Yeah. There were like concerns about Nakia's character, I think, from the initial rounds of reviews, but I think people have actually really like her and the way that she's portrayed. I think the biggest concern was Nakia was they did cast a non-Muslim hijabi to play Nakia, which no hate to the actress at all. Like I think Yasmin Fletcher is, she's doing great in her role and her performance is great, but there was that like concern of like casting. And so they were like, what if they changed Nakia's character? But I think they kind of did maintain who she is from the comics. Is just a little bit more different. Like she still has that loud, outspoken, confident, like activist self in her. So I think I've actually grown to like her character.
Yeah. Yeah, same here. Do you think that the who's the guy who the leader of the mosque? What's his name?
I don't know the name, but his name's like I don't want to mispronounce it. Like Sheikh? No, that's not.
Is it Sheikh Abdullah?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it might be Sheikh Abdullah. Actually. Sheikh Abdullah.
I hope I'm not. It is Sheikh Abdullah. Okay. When he comes out of the thing and they have a talk about kind of like this Miss Marvel character who's like running around. She's not named Miss Marvel yet, but like.
Yeah.
Do you think he knows that's Kamala?
I don't know.
When he says like good is not who you are, it's what you do.
Well,
was that just
I feel like he might have a hunch.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's something that he thinks, like too much about. But I feel like he might have a hunch because it's like a very specific piece of advice. And like everyone knows that quote is something that's like very big from the comic. So having it come from his mouth, I feel like he might know.
Yeah. Is that after? That's after. That is, it's after the damage control people go to the mosque.
Yes.
I get so nervous when it comes to the damage control and like they're just like random ass racism.
Oh
like,
yeah.
That the lady in episode 2 who was
she pissed me off so much.
I was like, this is horrible. And then at the end, the sheikh was like, and next time, take off your shoes. I started like thinking to myself, you didn't take off your shoes. That's horrible.
Yeah.
Like, what do you do? Just like, you got to clean that? I don't know how it works, but like, that's mad disrespect.
No, I get it. I think like Neebs, he was like, I was so irritated when they walked into the mosque with their shoes on. I was like, yeah, that's totally fair. Like I would be too. But I think specifically what they were showing of the damage control and the reality that a lot of like Muslims have to face in America, especially when it comes to like the government and, the surveillance and the assumptions. I think a lot of people were actually really happy that was shown on screen, like how realistic it was, and they didn't shy away from that. So that was something that I saw that like people appreciated was included because it just showed like the harsh reality of like Muslims in North America.
Yeah. After 9/11, like, I know like they cracked down and created reasons to round up people. And so so that scene, and then Nakia she hadn't got the position at that point, and then I think because of that she got the position on the council,
probably
the cabinet, or whatever board, whatever they call it. That's what I figured. I figured like, oh, they were like, oh yeah, she should be on it now.
Yeah, be on it. One character I am disappointed from the comics, like apart from like Kamala's power change, is Zoe, because in the comics, like a lot of people, like in the comics, like Zoe is in the beginning like racist and Islamophobic towards Nakia and Kamala, and here they kind of stripped her character from that, and then like her character like does change eventually, as we know in the comics. And so I did see some people express their disappointment onto like why they didn't show that, which I also agree with. Like I think that's her arc in itself is powerful and realistic, and but I feel like it's not my place to speak on, but I don't know if they didn't show that through Zoe, so they instead decided to show that through the damage control plot. Maybe like that was sort of their like the writer's perspective on doing that, I guess.
Yeah. I also, though, I think that if Zoe was racist and then we saw an arc to not be racist, I wouldn't believe it, and I would just hate Zoe as a character if I saw it in live action. Because I don't have any time for those characters. The character starts off racist and then learns they're not racist, and then whatever. Like, I'm supposed to accept them as like a good person after that? No.
Right.
I don't.
Yeah.
Right?
No,
so I just feel like I would just dislike Zoe forever.
True. Yeah.
She's billed as like one of the main characters, though. She gets a poster. She got a poster. Like, and then I don't know if you saw that. You've seen that TikTok video that they're doing on the Marvel TikTok where it's like it's the 3 girls and 3 guys, and like they choose which side
This,
they do
yeah.
that. So it's Zoe. It's I'm just saying character names: Kamala, Zoe, and Nakia, and then it's Amir, it's Kamran, and it's Bruno.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I feel like okay, they're saying that these are main characters. So Zoe, as well.
Right. Hopefully we see more of her because we barely got, like, I feel like we got a decent amount of her in episode 1 and then somewhat in episode 2. And yeah, obviously she was like not there in episode 3 at all. So
at all.
Hopefully like we get to see more of her and her interactions with Kamala and Nakia both.
Yeah. Do you think Nakia is just going to be mad at Kamala that we're going to go down this like CW road where it's like, I can't believe you kept secrets from me. I'm not your friend anymore. Are we going to get like this dumb CW drama?
I honestly, I would hope not, because I just don't think that'll stay like true to Nakia's character. I feel like she'd be upset, but if they do that, I just think like it's another unnecessary plot point and muddled in the show when there's already like so many questions to be answered and asked. Like if they do that, I think that'll kind of be like the final blow to the show if they're trying to make it oversaturated.
Yeah.
And it just won't stay true to the characters. So I feel like the writers so far have understood like the side characters well enough that they wouldn't go down that route. And I feel like towards the end of the show, I don't think Nakia was like that upset at Kamala either. So
at the end when she finds out,
yeah, it's been like, also I don't remember too much about the end, but like she was definitely like upset.
Yeah, she was definitely upset, but she wasn't like crazy because she helped Bruno because Bruno broke his arm.
Yeah, exactly.
Which happens later in the comics, right? With the explosion thing, right?
Yeah.
So I wonder what's gonna happen with Bruno and his arm.
Yep.
But yeah, I don't think it's gonna be too bad with Nakia. But we see that like big old fight scene. Did you like the fight scene, or could it have been done better?
I mean, I think it was fine actually. Like it was Kamala's first time. Like, I'm glad that she didn't just like beat up all of them. And, like I feel like if she had done that, it would have been very unrealistic because she's still getting used to her powers and stuff. So I actually thought I think it kind of did drag on for a little too long, if I'm being honest. But other than that, like the way it was showed, I didn't have any issues with. Like you could see like Kamala was still fumbling with her powers and like trying to figure out what's going on. So her strategy was like just more on the defense. And then when she finally got comfortable, she was like, okay, I'm going to try to go on the offense. I just think she got really lucky that the damage control was there to like save them. But
that was my big problem. My big problem, I think, is how easy they got away from damage control.
That I agree with.
Damage control was very close to that. Like they could have just like looked over there and seen them there, and like it was weird.
That's what I was confused by too. Yes, I was like, there were a lot of agents in that room.
Yeah,
and Kamala and Bruno were not at a hidden place either.
No.
So that's what I was really confused about. But so I guess like the question becomes is maybe damage control did see them. Did damage control see her when she was using her powers, or did they just see her when she was like helpless and not being able to defend herself? Because what if they just saw her like, just like being helpless, not being able to defend herself, they probably started and they're like, oh, like she's a kid trapped in there with another kid trying to fight out these people. So that's why they let her go.
But they would have interrogated her like they did Zoe, right?
I don't know. They might have. Yeah. So I guess there's a lot of questions, but
yeah, because Muniba says something later. Muniba says, who are those people you were talking to, or whatever.
Yeah.
And then, but like, when did Muniba see that she was talking to people? Because she didn't. She pulled the thing, and then as people were leaving, she saw like her talk to Kamran, because Bruno, her, and whatever Kamran grabs her, but we never see her like talk to anyone else, right?
Not really. So
Mr. Plow says, reminds me of the Turning Red twist. What's the wait, no, I still haven't finished Turning Red. I haven't finished it, so I don't want to ask what's the Turning Red twist. But that's what Mr. Plow says. I don't know if that means anything.
Wait, what did he say?
Mr. Plow on Twitch says, reminds me of the Turning Red twist. But I don't know what he's referring to as far as like what in Miss Marvel is reminding him of the Turning Red twist. I don't know because I don't know the Turning Red twist. I also don't want to be spoiled until I finally do.
Yeah,
finish the
I'm not
second half.
gonna
Okay.
I'm not gonna get into it then.
But does that mean something to you?
Well,
Is there
it's been a
something in
while.
Miss Marvel that reminds you of the Turning Red twist?
Choice? Not real. Choice?
Twist, not
Oh,
choice.
twist. Oh, I'm trying to think.
That's all right. I'm
it's
sure
been a while
Mr.
since I
Plow.
watched
Mr.
Turning-
Plow, we'll talk later. That's Paul. That's Paul, my co-host for a lot of the previous Marvel
nice.
shows and whatnot.
Yeah.
But so we have this fight. We have the and then we see the train. We have the train like vision moment. How do they both see the train? How did that happen? Was she touching it at the same time? Was Najma touching?
I think it was Najma who touched the bracelet, and so that's when the train popped up, right? So like, they both saw it.
They both saw it, and Nani, whatever. What's her name?
Yeah.
It's her name. Her name's not Nani, right? Nani is
Sana.
And so, like she had seen it. So it's like, what? That kick? Does Sana have the other bracelet?
Wait, that would make sense because otherwise, Muniba. But because that would make sense because then Muniba should have also seen the train, and there was no, or either she saw it and was just didn't say anything to Kamala, or
that's weird. You could just be driving down the road and suddenly, train.
Yeah, I guess there's a lot of like unknowns because like if Sana had the other one, that would make sense why she saw the train.
Because the bracelets.
But then why Muniba didn't see it. As far as we know, Muniba didn't see it. But then if Muniba saw it, then it becomes a question of like, how did she see it? Because Kamala is gonna go to Karachi.
Yeah.
And how is she gonna convince her parents?
With Muniba, right? She said both of you come.
Yeah.
But that's weird to do like a real quick, like, I don't know. Like, do you see yourself like being able to like drop your things and like take a trip like that?
No.
I feel like also Kamala's in school right now.
Mm-hmm.
Unless they're on spring break or something, but like,
I feel like to a certain level, you gotta suspend disbelief in like Marvel movies.
Not when it comes to this family and this community. Will they let her skip school? No.
True.
No. My mom, I think we traveled to Sri Lanka when I was a kid during the school year, and my mom asked my teacher for all the homework. And I had to do my homework on my trip.
Yeah. That's like, true.
That's what Muniba would do.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so I think we just like have to wait and see like I think honestly we just need to learn from Muniba's perspective what she's been through.
Yeah. And then also piece the things together.
Yeah, like I think because they've like planted seeds of like, okay, something happened during partition, like this is a family thing, like there's the there's the bangle. So I think once the pieces start fitting together, based on that, I'll have a better idea of like how I feel about the show, the story, and everything flowing.
Yeah.
And I'm interested to see how they explain the partition, like in the show, because in the comics, the way the partition explained and like Aisha's journey is something that's like very personal to me, because a lot of like my family, my great grandma had to make a similar journey, not during the partition, but after the partition from what is now Bangladesh to India. She had to leave Bangladesh for like very similar reasons. So like that was like a very personal moment to me from the comics. But now that like her great grandma has powers, I'm like, I don't think that'll hit the same way. And I'm really interested to see the story they tell.
Yeah. There's a lot of really interesting things. The thing that I don't like, and this is a problem that I had with Shang-Chi, and I've been talking about it since Shang-Chi came out. I don't like this idea of another dimension full of blank. Like there's this other dimension full of like a village of like whatever. There's this other dimension, because like in the Marvel comics alone, over however many decades Marvel comics have been around, there's like random dimensions with random people all the time. There's
Mm-hmm.
like hundreds, right? And
Yeah.
like you just write it into the story that like there's a random person from dimension X that comes in, and this is a dimension where like people are part robot, part giraffe, and that is just like the way it is. And so like I feel like Shang-Chi just did it in the movie, and now we have Clandestine that like they're another like extra dimensional kind of thing, and I'm like, it's kind of weird, right?
I
Unless they're
think it
from the
is.
same spot. What if no, they're not from the same spot. They can't be.
Wait, no, because a lot of people like there was a thing I saw on Twitter when people were talking about the Shang-Chi connection. It's like, what if the Tao Lo, the village of Tao Lo, and what it stands for, like being from another dimension, is kind of the same thing as the clandestine. And like there's like that sort of parallel, which is why we saw that Shang-Chi connection in Miss Marvel. Like I think there's a
like
lot of like
Talos connection to the Ten Rings is very similar to the Clandestine's connection to the Ten Rings, and there could be something there.
I think like the clandestines. I'm trying to like find the exact tweet, but it was really interesting one. It was like just a theory someone threw around. Give me 1 second. Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna try and find it, but like just like adding and connecting this to Shang-Chi is just gonna add like a whole another layer of confusion. I feel like because we already don't know about the origin, but I do agree with you. Now they're just like now that they've opened up the mold. First of all, I don't know if it's just me. What's the difference? How does a dimension exist in a universe? Because I would assume that's like another universe.
It's not. A dimension is just like a dimensional plane, right? It's just
right.
like, and that's all the same universe. So like Doctor Strange in the first movie, like he goes to the mirror dimension and whatever. It's not part of the multiverse. It's still part of our universe, but it's just dimensional planes that are stacked on each other, right?
Okay,
that's the way I look at things.
Right. So, no. That makes sense. So Tao Lo is a dimension inside of Earth.
Yeah.
Shang-Chi was also, oh my God, are they going to start connecting Miss Marvel to Doctor Strange? Like that specific dimension? Because technically Wong was on the ride with Shang-Chi and recruited him towards the end. So like that's what I'm trying to think now. Because it's another dimension and technically Strange.
With Ta Lo?
No, but like just in general, like it's another dimension being introduced with Miss Marvel and like Wong helped Shang-Chi.
Yeah.
And towards the end, it was Wong and Shang-Chi. So are they gonna like start?
Because Ta Lo is very similar also to Kun Lun, which is from Iron Fist.
Mm-hmm.
Kun Lun is also like almost an extra dimensional like city that's kind of like in Tibet, but it's not, right?
Right.
Or Nepal, either Tibet or Nepal. But the point being is that like it's this like monastery kind of place. Like there's so many extra dimensional locations in Marvel. I don't want them to do that in everything like in the MCU, you know?
I agree.
I hope there's some sort of simplification or streamlining that like it's not multiple extra dimensions, it's just one. And like there's just different like ways to access it. There's Ta Lo, there's wherever the clandestines are from, so on and so forth.
No, I agree. Like I think for me personally, the multiverse in itself is so confusing. Like when you add okay, like this is like kind of getting off topic from Miss Marvel, but the TVA did not help me understand the multiverse.
Because
the point of
it didn't follow its own rules. That's the problem.
Like the idea of the TVA didn't help you understand the multiverse. Now on top of it with Eternals, which I love Eternals, but now you introduce the Celestials. Now we're working with different dimensions. And like, where do these things, like, I know dimensions don't necessarily like to connect to the multiverse, but I'm like, they introduce all these big things, but the MCU has always been on connectivity. So it's like, what are you trying to go for? Like, are you just trying to go for like standalone stories in different, and like Multiverse of Madness, just, I have a lot of opinions about that movie. It did not help with the confusion at all. So, I feel like, like, thank you for saying that. Basically, I like
the multiverse when it's done right, and I also understand the multiverse when it comes to the comic books. But when it comes to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, introducing the multiverse makes things way more complicated for a lot of fans. To the point where, like, people will say, Tony Stark will be back. He's just going to be a Tony Stark from a different universe. Or Captain America can come back and he'll just be like blah, blah, blah. You can do anything with the multiverse. It's like you can bring back Aunt May, and you can, in the multiverse, you can, if you didn't like Spider-Man No Way Home, you can just go to a different multiverse that didn't have that happen. And it's like, ugh, it's so dumb. So I'm not a big fan. It just has to be done right. But I hope they close the door on the multiverse thing. And the TVA and Loki, none of those rules made sense.
No, they didn't.
You know, it does, especially with the way the multiverse works. Technically, Loki didn't have the multiverse. They had altered timelines.
That's the other thing that's confusing, because I'm like, I thought, like, now I'm like, okay, so you have dimensions, right, but now you also have alternate timelines.
Right.
And you're telling me there's multiple, I feel like
multiple universes with multiple timelines and dimensions in those universes.
So then what's like, how do you create a timeline versus a dimension? Like, right, it's like these small things that, like, I don't read the comics, so it's very difficult for me to understand. I know they're trying to shape it more like the comics, but I feel like TV is something that's accessible to a lot of people, and people want to understand that easier.
Right.
So,
and it's not just people like us. Like, we should be able to, like, watch it with our parents. And have our parents be able to understand it if they don't have experience with these, like, weirdo concepts.
Right. And, like, that's, like, another conversation that's just been overall going about the MCU. It's like, it's very hard to become a new fan because they're oversaturating it. And I very much agree with that point. I feel like they think, like, this is I love the MCU, I grew up on it, but from, like, a business perspective, I think they're relying too much on the brand name of the MCU to carry it, that in the end, that technique will be its own fault, because you can't expect new fans to, like, live and breathe the MCU. Like, people have their own lives outside. They just want to be able to, like, watch a movie and, like, not think too much about it. And the oversaturation of the content and everything, like, it does get exhausting. And I think I'm personally at this point where I'm like, I'll watch all the projects, but I'll kind of watch them on my own time, especially the shows. Like, I won't feel an obligation to, like, watch and talk about every single show that's coming out, because I also do have a life outside that, like, gets busy.
The way I saw Marvel. Oh, sorry, were you gonna say something?
No, you can go ahead.
The way I assumed Marvel was heading, and I feel like I'm wrong with this, but I could be still right, is that instead of, and this is the way I would have done things, instead of doing a phase 4, like, sure, we know we're in phase 4, but instead of focusing on phases, focus on corners of the universe. So what I mean by corners is, this is the cosmic corner. We have a couple of different cosmic related series, Guardians of the Galaxy, Captain Marvel, Thor, and have them cross over with each other and tell stories in their franchises. But we don't need to connect that to Hawkeye. That doesn't make any sense. So, for example, Hawkeye is the street level, maybe espionage, secret spy corner of the Marvel Universe. That includes, like, Daredevil if he wants to show up, Spider-Man, Hawkeye, those kind of more down-to-earth characters. Then there's, like the weird science fiction Ant-Man. You can have them, like, those weird science fiction characters kind of cross over with each other and kind of create different corners and tell different stories. Like, instead of having one big bad, have multiple, but for each corner that you're building up to.
Right.
And I feel like that would have been easier to kind of comprehend.
Oh, yeah,
because
for sure.
Kang is not going to affect everyone. Hawkeye, like, will Kang affect Hawkeye? Probably not. We don't need him to, right?
No.
I don't know.
No, and, like, that's what it's weird. Like, I think we got so much in phase 4. I'm like, sometimes I sit back and think, and I'm like, we got a Celestial to show up on Earth.
Yeah.
There was the whole Spider-Man No Way Home thing. What is Hawkeye doing? What is Captain America's reaction? It makes their stories seem almost insignificant in the larger MCU when you start having these things kind of cross over, which is why and I know I'm probably gonna get flack for saying this, as much as I love Spider-Man No Way Home and the nostalgia, I didn't really like the fact that they took Spider-Man, such a grounded hero, and mixed him in with magic, because it kind of strips away from what makes him such a relatable character, which is being a grounded hero.
Right.
And look, like, I love No Way Home. I think it's a great movie. I love the nostalgia, but that, like, the plot of it is just kind of flimsy, because I genuinely
There's some plot holes, huh?
There are plot holes there. And it's because you're taking a character that's normally very, very grounded, and now you're suddenly throwing him into a whole different section of the MCU. And I don't know, like, I think definitely the pandemic probably had issues to deal with. Yeah. But I think moving forward, like, if I was in Marvel too, what I would do, I'd be like, okay, we need to
pick a direction.
We need to pick a direction. Franchise. We also need to kind of put a full stop on some of the content. We don't need to go full out. Like, I understand the pandemic prolonged some things. So, you know, they wanted to put out content for a year, like 2021. They wanted to do as much as they can. But like at this point, I kind of just be like, let's put a stop. Let's maybe do 2 movies a year, 2 shows a year. That's good enough.
No, I don't want that. But I'm with you. I personally think they should focus on what they do have instead of creating whole new shows. So that, because like, when is the next time we're gonna see Haley Steinfeld? Like, we don't know. But like, what if instead we just had a season of Hawkeye every year? Like, even if it's 6 episodes, then at least we know we're gonna see her next year. We're gonna see it, and so like we know the ones we have. But instead, like, who did we start off? Like the Eternals. I have no idea when we're gonna see the Eternals.
It's weird because you can see the Eternals in almost any project coming forward, because the way that they were shown, like, they kind of have an impact on the entire world. But then it's also confusing because it's like, okay, so are they going to show up? Like, they had that reference to Kingo, which made very sense.
Cool. Yeah.
That was super cool. And I was really happy to see that. I was like, yeah, if they didn't show a reference, that would be like a very missed opportunity for them to do that. But then it's like, so where do the Eternals, because the Eternals are a whole different thing, because they can actually technically cross over anywhere. I mean, you can have Sprite, who's currently a human on Earth. She can just randomly show up in any project if she wants. Right. Like,
but hopefully the theme and the mood of that project fits, is what I'm saying. Like, Hawkeye doesn't need to pop up in space.
No. Because
they don't fit. So if we kind of create different corners of the MCU, I feel like it works better.
Yeah.
Like, Eternals is cosmic, but the Eternals could also be, I don't see them being like a down to earth, like teaming up with Spider-Man in New York, right? But I don't know. It's very interesting, and I don't know what they're planning on doing with everything. But like, I don't think less content necessarily is the purpose. Less new content. Let's keep the ones that we have and just do sequels for a little while until we can figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, I knew like with Phase 4 they wanted to open up the MCU, and I feel like they've done that enough now to where it's like,
they keep expanding, but like, let's build up.
Exactly. Like, let's build up instead of out, because I think up until Moon Knight was good enough new content, because Moon Knight just like introduced this whole idea of like gods and mythology, and then all of a sudden they're real too, and I'm like, okay.
This is a lot. Yeah.
So it's like, where do we go from here? Like, we really don't know when we're going to be seeing Moon Knight again. So I agree. It's like build up instead of build out.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. And then once you build a certain amount, then build out and then build some more, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But right now they're just doing this, and it's like, when are we going to see these characters again? We don't know.
Yes.
Unless they announce a season 2, right? Like, but we don't have a season 2. Okay, so we know like Falcon Winter Soldier, we're gonna see them in a movie because there's gonna be Captain America 4. Okay. Yeah. We Loki, I think, hints at a season 2.
Loki's confirmed season 2, yeah. Okay,
WandaVision's not, but we saw her in Multiverse Madness, and it almost didn't matter. Like, WandaVision didn't matter for Multiverse Madness, but okay.
Not really.
Hawkeye, we don't know when Hawkeye and them. Eternals, we don't know when they're gonna show up. Shang-Chi, we don't know. We don't even know. They're not even filming season 2 or movie 2 yet, you know? There's just more. She-Hulk is coming out, Echo is coming out. Like,
Which is why I'm like more excited for the grounded projects now, because I'm actually a big fan of Cosmic MCU, but I think with Cosmic MCU you can go like this, and then grounded MCU it's like you can just watch it and it'll be fine, because hopefully they won't stretch it out to where you got to understand these connections. And I think like that's my issue with a lot like the multiverse of MCU, because you got to like start understanding these. But like the grounded stories is okay, I can just watch Hawkeye and Kate Bishop take down, you know, a gang, and I don't have to think about anything else. It's just that.
Yeah, I'm with you. One last thing before we do end of this episode is that what I had mentioned earlier is that I think Kamala should tell her parents. I think it's time. I think her parents are like, maybe her parents they seem strict enough that sure, she wasn't allowed to go to Avengers Con and like she snuck out, whatever. But like, they don't seem to have any actual punishment.
Yeah.
Because she got to go to Zoe's party in the second
exactly.
episode. So it's like, if she was like, hey, I'm a superhero, they would be like, don't go out. I don't want you to be a superhero. And she's like, I'm still a superhero. And they'd be like, okay. Like, they wouldn't have a punishment for her.
Right. It would be that, and it's just like, okay, well then be safe. We just want you being safe. Like,
right. Which
that's
they know
what
in the they know in the comic.
Yeah, they do. I think her mom finds out first, right? And then after that, her mom's like, I always knew.
Yeah. I don't know. I forget what exactly happens. I just remember they both know, right? They both know?
Mm-hmm.
In the comics? Yeah.
Yeah, I know her dad. Yeah, I just remember her mom ends up finding out a lot earlier than her dad, though.
Uh-huh.
So.
Yeah. I don't know. But yeah, I think it's time. She should just say. Like, I feel like the MCU doesn't rely on secret identities anyway. But like, sure, maybe her identity is secret to the public, but for her or for her family, let her family know.
I mean, yeah, I feel like they've got to know, you know, it's for their own safety too, if they do know as well. So yeah. I think it's important if that'll happen. I think it'll be a really interesting conversation. Probably maybe by the 4th episode. I don't know, because she is supposed to go to Muniba. But see, it's a little different because technically I feel like Muniba would indirectly know if she has to go to Karachi, but then I don't know like how much her dad knows. So I think that'd be like a really interesting conversation when they do end up going to Karachi, like how she's going to explain it to be like, we got to go. Or Muniba's like, yeah, I do know, like not, you know, Sana called me. So yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot to think about with this. Do you have any final thoughts about where we think like season 4, episode 4, or just like the rest of the episodes will go?
Well, I definitely see with episode 4, hopefully we start getting like the backstory behind like what happened to her great grandma. I think she could be alive, like you said, which would be slightly weird because the great grandma would look perfectly young, and then everyone else is, and then like her kids and like her grandkids are just anyways. So like that, so I definitely think like with episode 4, I think they're gonna like give us the full backstory, and then you get like Red Dagger, and I think
the clandestine will put on the bracelet, get those powers.
Yeah. And I think that'll probably happen around episode 5. I really wonder where they're gonna go with the damage control plot. I feel like that's like the most unknown, because she's kind of has 2 things going at her. Has the and also the damage control had the clandestine in captive right now. So I wonder what they're gonna do with that. I'm pretty sure like the clandestine will escape or have no problem, but I think adding the damage control into the mix is gonna serve an interesting story. But I do hope that gets like wrapped up somewhat quickly, because otherwise I think then the finale will become way too convoluted.
Yeah, but I mean, Marvel sometimes does a convoluted finale.
True. True. I just hope they're not going to try doing it with this one, because then the finale don't stake if that usually happens.
I hope everything works out for Miss Marvel and the show and everything. Because I want it to continue being good. I'm just afraid that like the introduction of these characters has maybe made this too much to handle. I'm not quite
Yes,
sure. I don't know.
I kind of
I should have
agree.
faith.
I think like the overcomplicated explanation of the clandestine has made it a little complex to understand what direction they're taking in the show. I feel like if they kept it to Inhumans, or just like not even Inhumans, if it's just like, yeah, like we're just trying to get, like we're an exile group of Inhumans, we're trying to get home, you know, we think the bracelet might be able to help us by activating our powers, and then towards the end it's like, I feel like if they took the Inhumans route, it would just be like, you know, they also put on the bracelet, unlock the powers, they try to go home, Kamala defeats them, and then Black Bolt comes and he's like, oh, thank you for finding these exiled group of Inhumans.
Yeah.
This is who you are. Like, I think it would have just been such a simpler explanation with the Inhumans, but you're adding in another dimension. So that's when like things get complicated.
Yeah. I think after episode 6, we'll be able to look back and be like, did they really need to do X, Y, and Z?
Exactly.
You know? And we can be able to like look back and be like, would it have just been easier to do in Humans? I wonder what the reasoning is. There has to be some sort of reason.
No, and that's what I'm like super curious about too, because like the thing with the Jinn, right? Like we kind of touched on it before. Obviously, we can't get into it. Is it's not very comfortable for a lot of Muslims to see that.
Yeah.
But then there were South Asian and creative Muslims in the production crew.
Right. That's what I thought too. Like the
that's what I'm also like,
and the directors and whatever. There has to be a reason that makes it okay, right?
Yeah, and that's what I'm really confused about, because I'm like, it's not like I can't even say it's like okay, so the writers for this episode were white, and a lot of people do take issue with that because they're like, that's weird that the writers of this episode are white, and I'm like, that's true, but the director wasn't. The rest of the crew, this like the main head writer Bisha K. Ali, like they even have co-creator Sana on the crew, so I'm like, what was their reasoning in going such a complicated route and adding something that makes a core audience feel uncomfortable? What happened on production? Like, was it that like Marvel kind of hammered out and it's like, no, you have to go this route, and so they were had to work around that? Or I just wonder what went through the chain. Like,
we'll figure it out, right?
I guess we will. Yeah,
like if there's something we learned from Obi-Wan Kenobi, I don't know if you're watching it, but
I did.
It's like, let's not jump to conclusions until like the season's over. Like when people were like, the Grand Inquisitor can't die, blah blah blah. What is Rebels not canon? And like they like freaked out, and it's like, no, just let's just wait.
Yeah.
Like, so maybe we have to like sit and wait. You know,
I think
they could explain things next episode. Like, we don't know.
They could. I just think it would be like a weird cop out for like to kind of trick the viewers and be like, we're clandestine. No, actually, and then towards the end they're like, we're actually Inhuman. I'm just like confused on like why they would do that if she was going to end up being Inhuman anyways.
Right.
So yeah.
I don't know. I guess we'll see. Thank you so much, Rid, for coming on and taking time out of your night to be here and talk episode 3 of Miss Marvel with me.
Thank you so much for having me on. I had a great time talking and like theorizing about what's going to happen, and I'm excited for the rest of the episodes, and I hope you enjoy the show as well.
Yeah, that's the thing about TV culture, right? Like, imagine if they released all these episodes, they bulk released all 6. We wouldn't be able to talk about each individual episode. We wouldn't be able to think about it, theorize. We wouldn't be able to meme about it, because that's kind of the thing about weekly shows is like you can make memes. And
right.
Like, do that, and there's meme culture.
Of course.
And meme culture and TV culture now go hand in hand.
Yes.
You know, like, I don't know if you watch The Boys.
No, it's on my watch list, but I've seen the memes. I've seen the tweets about it, and I want to get into it. It's just, we had Kenobi, Miss Marvel.
It's
so
intense,
many things
though.
coming out.
Have you watched any of The Boys? Any of the seasons?
No.
Okay. It's very inappropriate. Just so you
I've
know.
heard.
Okay. So yeah, that's the thing about The Boys, and so it's like, yeah, but like there's memes involved and like whatever. So like, that's I like being able to watch these things and talk about them episode by episode. So thank you.
Me too.
Thank you so much for being here, and you will be here co-hosting with me for the next couple episodes until this is over.
Yep, I'm really excited, and thank you so much again for the opportunity and having me on here. I'm excited to talk about the rest of the episodes and the show overall and how that goes.
Yeah. thank you. Rid, where can people find you on social media? Do you have anything coming up? Anything you want to plug?
Not necessarily anything, not like anything coming up. I mean, I'm just at Marvel with Rid on all social media platforms, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. I do have a podcast also called Eternally Obsessed. It's a bit backlog right now. I haven't uploaded episodes in a while, but
it happens.
They'll be coming out soon. So if you're interested in that stuff, I will say I'm a really big fan of the Eternal. So I love discussing that. So if you're into that.
Is your podcast all Eternal stuff?
Not really, but I'm in the middle of doing a series where I'm doing one podcast episode about each Eternal and doing a deep dive into them with another host. So the past 3 episodes have been about that, but I do love talking about Eternal. So if you're a fan of them,
All right. What's it called? Eternally Obsessed?
Yeah, Eternally Obsessed.
All right. Thank you, Rid, so much for coming on. Thank you to anyone out there who is watching. If you're watching us, either live in our live stream at volume.com/The Keeg Show or twitch.tv/The Keeg Show or youtube.com/The Keeg Show. Or you're watching us post, and kind of watching the video after we've done this on any of those platforms. Or you are listening to the podcast wherever you get your podcast from, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, SoundCloud, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. We are on those 5 and maybe even more podcast channels. I'm not quite sure. Definitely let us know. However you digest us, whether it's by watching the video or listening to the podcast, please give us a review, give us 5 stars, whatever it is. Let us know that you're out there. Comment, subscribe on all or any of our social media. We are at The Keeg Show on social media. TikTok and Instagram are our main ones. We're also on Facebook. We're also on Twitter. But pretty much we're at The Keeg Show anywhere. /The Keeg Show, at The Keeg Show. That's how you find The Keeg. We not only have the Miss Marvel after show, we finished the Obi-Wan after show. We got Comic Talk on Thursdays, Keeg Back on Fridays, the Keeg Talks on most Saturdays. So we got a lot of stuff going on. But definitely stay tuned for all that the Keeg has to offer. That's it for this show. Thank you again, Rid, for coming on here and taking time.
Thank you for having me. Yeah. And everyone have a good night.
Yeah. Once again, I'm your host, Dimitri Pereira, and this has been the Miss Marvel After Show, talking about episode 3. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Super fast, gotta beat the boss and get the loot, cause it's the king, and we got geek news.